Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines. I'm Phil Wers, President and CEO of the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And man, we're super stoked today to have two great guests with us. We have Michael McGowan, PGA TOUR player, getting ready to play in the 2024 U.S. Open, and his life coach from True Champion Academy, Veronica Karaman. Thanks so much for being here, taking the time. To be honest with you, I wanted to reach out to you, and I was like, this guy is going to be all jacked up because he's getting ready for a U.S. Open, his first PGA Tour event. And Veronica reached out and said, hey, we'd love to be on the program. So thanks so much, both of you, for being here in Paradise in the Pines. And first of all, I got to ask you, Mike, I mean, as we record this a week before the first round of the U.S. Open, what are the emotions after having qualified? And all that, we'll talk about that. But I mean, what are your emotions a week from, as this post, like a couple days before you take the first tee at the 2024 U.S. Open?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to the week ahead. I know I'm going to try to get out there as much as possible. Just very excited as a whole. I know I'm going to try to keep my nerves in check, and we're working on some stuff to do that. But, yeah, just looking forward to teeing it up.
And Veronica, you're his, I guess,
performance coach.
Performance coach,
yes.
Life coach, performance coach.
Yes.
How did you get involved with Michael? And we'll get into the whole mental side of things, but talk about your relationship with Michael and how you assist him with things maybe on and off the golf course.
Well, actually, my relationship with Michael began well before in my relationship with Bonnie, his mom. And when Bonnie played for Carolina, I played for Duke. So my relationship goes way back. But we actually started working together when I was in Florida and he was in Florida. But I came back, it was over Thanksgiving, and we got together and we were just chatting. And with him, my coaching hat just goes on. And this was back at, like I said, before the end of the year. And I was like, Michael, what are your goals for next year? What are your, and he was like, man, be a dream come true if I could qualify for the U.S. Open and play in front of my family and friends. And something inside of me sparked. And I was like, well, I can come to agreement with that. And so we decided to start working together again, and it's been a 6-month goal and very exciting to see it come to pass. And I remember when he called me up, we were both like overwhelmed in that moment, like we did it. And then it was like, oh, this isn't just the end, this is the beginning.
Now it's begun,
Oh, now's the real beginning. So it's been a real joy.
It's been a long journey for you, Michael, 9 years on the mini tours. I mean, what kept you going? I talked to your uncle Kelly before, Kelly Miller, before we had this conversation, and said what kept him going? What kept him, mentally in the game to keep plugging away to the point where after 9 years, you've qualified for the national championship, and you're going to do it in your hometown.
Yeah, I mean, if you play golf enough, you're going to have the ups and downs, the lows and highs. And I mean, I'd had success kind of on the different tours, whether it's mini tours or PGA Tour Latin America or PGA Tour Canada. But it's just tough to say because I've had a great support staff, my dad especially, kind of talking me through everything because he's been through it himself. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing. And then just finding a way to still love the game after all that time, even though you're not where you want to be.
What was it like growing up at Pine Needles? Your grandmother, Peggy Kirk Bell, your father, your Uncle Kelly, Don Andrews, everybody that is associated with that special place that has hosted many U.S. Women's Opens. What was it like growing up there, playing there, and getting really the family schooling that you would get in that environment?
Words can't explain it. I mean, I was surrounded by great players, great staff, great instructors. It always felt like home, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're surrounded by enough good golfers and good people mentally that it kind of propels you to move forward and keep playing and trust yourself and your game. And just growing up playing, chipping and putting, all that stuff, I mean, you just learn to love the game, and especially with the grandma, Mammer, who we called Peggy Kirk Bell. She kind of got me in the game in the first place, taught me the grip, taught me, all that stuff. And as she got older, things changed. I mean, I'd hit on the range and I'd be upset with a shot, and she'd know I mishit it at 90 years old, which is kind of crazy to think about. She's like, oh, you thinned that a little bit? Yeah, I did. So yeah, golf with the McGowan, Miller, Bell family has just been right there this whole time.
No doubt. Very, very special family. You're very fortunate to grow up there.
Yeah.
What was it like in Dallas? We'll go back to the qualifier where you beat Sergio Garcia, Masters champion, Ryder Cup champion. It was a sixth place playoff, 6 spots for seven people competing. What was it like? Because I know you had some time between when you finished, and were you able to talk to him? How do you kind of keep Michael his head in it and realize, hey, you still got a chance. This could still happen. Because the mind gets racing, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and we had been closely working in that whole time, and all I can say is that we really took a faith-based approach to all of this. And while he was playing, I was praying. And I literally prayed the whole day. And I really felt a result of my prayer that God spoke to me and he said, you just cleared a path for him all the way to the U.S. Open. So I felt this sense of knowing because he had finished second out of 132 the week before. And I'm like, he took a leap, and I said to him, you did that. You belong here. Like there was this sense of him going into that pressure of not diminishing him, but actually expanding him because he was stepping into where he belonged all the way along. And so the first time I opened up the leaderboard and I saw you were in an early lead, like he was number one. I think you were like one after 6 holes. And I was like, dang, he's doing it.
Do you look at the scoreboard?
I had no idea, honestly. The guy I was playing with happened to be checking the whole time, and he sent me an Instagram message that said, way to go, my friend. But
did you want to get that?
It's one of those things. I remember 2019 at Corn Ferry Q School, my second to last hole of the 4th round, there's a big scoreboard. And I just made a great par, and I didn't want to look because I knew where I was and like what I wanted to do in the last 2 holes, and I ended up making 2 nice pars and missed actually short birdie putts. But knowing that, it's like almost like a hit or miss kind of moment because you want to know where you stand, but you also like that might bring other thoughts and looking ahead and all that stuff. So
it's always a wonder if I should. But I was looking at it the whole day. So he was like, what, 500 par at one point, and I was like, man, he's doing it. And then just faltered a little, so he got to -3. And that's when, like, he called me, and there was a little disappointment. And I just, I really thought, well, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. You know what I'm saying? And so I had texted him back, and I said, listen, just shove aside that disappointment because, like, encourage them that it's going to happen and just do it in the playoff. It doesn't matter. And we actually said that the fact that he beat Sergio Garcia in the playoff, I said, that's preparation for the next stage.
No doubt.
Like it really spoke so much to me and hopefully to him that if he can do that, it kind of leads into opening your mind to the possibility. He can look at going into this 2 ways. One, I've already had the victory. I've already achieved my goal. But then there are so many reasons to believe for an even bigger goal.
It's interesting. Everybody talks about in competition staying in the moment. I guess, first of all, since you were playing, she was praying. Did you feel the divine intervention, for one? And how did you keep yourself in the moment when you're playing next to a world-class player such as Sergio Garcia?
Did I feel all the vibes coming away? No, because I was feeling a lot more other things. Like
don't tell me I got to pray harder because I can't pray any harder.
No, you did a great job.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's like, okay, I probably was done an hour and a half before. I'm kind of hanging around. My buddy from Dallas comes and hangs out, and he wants to, be there to support. And the scoreboards were kind of wrong the whole time because there was live scoring, but it wasn't all fully updated. And so you're like, am I in? Am I in the playoff? Am I out? Kind of thing. And then we all go over to the scoreboard and like, oh, by the way, playoff 7 for 6. Okay, let's go to the first tee. Oh, you're playing with Sergio and Brandon Wu. Okay, you're in the first group. Okay. Tee it up and go. So there wasn't really time. There was a lot of time in between, but then when it came to playing the hole, like you're straight there hitting the tee shots. So
and you hit a great shot.
And I hit a great tee ball. I was a little juiced up with the sand wedge and hit it long, but hit a great pitch and tapped in the par. So.
And Sergio missed his up and down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we're kind of in the same spot. It was kind of a who's who, like who's going to go first. And I said I would go ahead, but then his ball was kind of behind me. I didn't want to stand kind of around it. And it was going to bother me and I might mess up where his lie was. And so he was nice enough to go ahead and kind of came up short. And I was like, oh, I know how it reacts now. I mean, it's one of those things. It's unfortunate for him, but, you know, I still thought he made the putt at the end of the day because it looked like a great stroke. So I'm just happy I chipped it up there tight.
No doubt. Yeah. Did he say anything to you when it concluded?
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, like way to qualify. But then he was waiting for the guys behind him, so I think he was still in like, okay, so I still have a chance, you know. And I'm sure as one of the highest alternates, he'll probably still get in the tournament. But
you can say hi to him.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. Hey, man.
I got you.
Thanks for doing a little research and development for me.
It's interesting because a few weeks ago, the week before Xander Schauffele won the PGA Championship, he was very candid about self-belief. You know, I think the week before he faltered in a critical moment, but then he persevered to the PGA Championship. How do you maintain and how do you approach maintaining his self-belief when I'm sure as a competitive golfer it ebbs and flows all the time?
Well, I would have to say we have very much identified what has held him back, and that's been perfectionism. And when you are dealing with that, to me, that's more deeply rooted than the mental. It goes down to belief, right? And the belief is I'm not enough or I have to be perfect to accomplish my goal. And so we've been working very hard of pulling out that, I could just call it the old operating system, because I put that in a spiritual zone of identity. And then that leads to the emotions of defeat, disgust, disappointment. And there was a few weeks before the qualifier when I was out watching him in a tournament and I saw some of that come up in his emotions. And then that leads to lack of confidence. And then it leads to,
a bogey.
I call it, tweaking the swing, you know? So I was like, oh, we got to slay that thing. And I happened to be in the moment. So it was after 10, and he was walking off the tee, and I just walked by him, and I said, you have 8 holes to the U.S. Open. How are you going to play them? And he goes, say no more. And he birdied 4 of the last 8 holes.
Wow.
And then afterwards, we kind of had this moment. Can I share that? Can I share this?
Go for it.
And I said, Michael, like it's time to bury some things, because you can't take those emotions and the way of operating that way to where you're going. And we did. We literally took a sheet of paper, wrote down, the things we wanted to bury and end the old story.
Yeah.
Because we had to end the old story. And there was a little patch of dirt, like this little garden area. He was like, well, there's some dirt over there. So we took a piece of paper and wrote down defeat, disgust, the perfectionism and, the expectation. And we buried it. And I actually said a prayer over him, and then we just said, I'm free. And that was the beginning of his new story. And so it's an interesting mix of life coaching and performance coaching, because at the end of the day, you're still the person playing, right? So now we've begun to cultivate a process that we've begun working on of, I call congruence, is connecting the head and the heart. And I take all my players through this because you talk about confidence, consistency, and all of that, but you have to be congruent with what your head and your heart are saying together. So we spent several hours yesterday saying, why do you believe you can win this U.S. Open? What is true for you? And writing out those true statements and spending some time before you play in meditation and in doing the inner work, so that you can play more what I call from stillness. So you got to work on the root system, right?
Yeah.
So we're really pulling those things out, and one of probably my better strength is articulation. So someone might feel something, but then I can help define it and articulate it so that those words could be put to it. And we're working on that now because, I played in the U.S. Open once, and the moment, of course, we had those little 1/4-inch yellow ropes back then, but the moment you enter under that rope, it's a whole different atmosphere, and so I want him to go in with that greatest sense of knowing and belief. And that's what we're working on now.
How do you absorb that, Michael?
One day at a time. I mean, we did, like she said, she articulated kind of what I wrote down and why I deserve to be there and what I believe to be true for this week. And it was like getting all that down, written down, because I feel like you learn better when you write. So wrote it all down and then doing audio of that and then listening of yourself talk to yourself about that and kind of hear it enough to where you start to fully believe it.
And it gets in your subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much has your father guided you now that you've made the U.S. Open? Has he, I'm sure he's given you some advice or some encouragement, obviously. What words has he imparted to his son as he embarks on this?
Just enjoy it. I mean, we're both very busy trying to host people coming in town and people reaching out for tickets and all that stuff.
You need to be practicing. You don't need to be
hosting. That's what I told him. And that's why I put it on him and then my cousin Kellyanne.
Hosting people.
Yeah.
This is where you delegate.
Right.
So it's just been, very hectic, but also I've enjoyed the process. It's fun to have people reach out and get back to them. And ideally I get back to them at a decent time, not 2 or 3 days later, but again, very busy. So he's just been telling me kind of keep it one step at a time. He's actually out in California watching his niece's daughter graduate high school. So they'll be back in town. But yeah, he's giving me my space to kind of do what I want leading into this week, given that. And I'm just taking advantage of everything I can.
I know go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he has so many fans and friends, being here. And so I decided, well, I'll create a little Facebook fan page. So anybody that's interested in following him and keeping it up to date, it's called Go Michael Go, Michael McGowan U.S. Open Fan Club. So
very cool.
Yeah.
We'll look at that and say it again so people can go to that page.
It's Go Michael Go, Michael McGowan U.S. Open Fan Club.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine playing in your hometown, how many ticket requests have you gotten already?
It's a combination. Like you think it'd be a more than enough amount, but at the same time, a lot of people know like how it works, so like they kind of hold off or wait a week and then they ask kind of thing. But you only get a certain amount, and we can buy. Anyone can buy them, but we get a discounted rate as players now. So try to help everyone get into the Open, because the more support, the better for me.
I'm sure your dad and your Uncle Kelly have some connections with the USGA.
You would think so, yeah. There's a couple tournaments that have been around this area. So.
Yeah.
We made some Michael McGowan fan club T-shirts too, so we'll see some of those out there.
Yeah, I know my cousins did something else. I don't know. They won't tell me what they made, but they'll all be wearing something. So it'll be quite the collection of people.
As we record this a week before the first round of the U.S. Open, this will post a couple days before, you told us off camera, before you're going to play a practice round. How much have you played Pinehurst No. 2 in your lifetime? I know you're going to get some practice rounds in before this Open, but I mean, how familiar are you with the course? Because obviously it's Donald Ross' masterpiece, and it is diabolical greens, and I'm sure you're very familiar. What is your familiarity with that course at this point in your life?
Yeah, specifically number 2. I felt like it was a lot of junior and amateur events out there, like the North-South or the Donald Ross Jr. and a bunch of other stuff like the Winter National Series when I was in high school. And after going to college, I felt like I never really went back out there because, I'd go out there for a reason, but I'm not going to go out there to just play. And since then, I've probably played 5 times this year, and I couldn't tell you the last time I played it in the last handful of years, but just growing up there, being out there all the time, and especially the Donald Ross greens aspect of it, like Pine Needles, Southern Pines, Mid Pines, a lot of courses in town kind of have those greens. So just playing a lot of golf and growing up in this area is definitely going to be an advantage, I would think. But
okay, let's be honest now. This is what he told me. I said, Michael, these guys really don't have an advantage over you. We were talking about Pinehurst No. 2, and he goes, not here they don't. Yeah. So he goes, I know this course better than anybody. So that forms some of our belief statements.
Yeah.
And when you're walking the course, who's your caddy? You're going to have one of the caddies from the resort, or I understand you may have a gentleman named Billy who may be assisting you?
Yeah, Billy Lewis is coming in town. He's caddying for Kevin Sutherland on the Champions Tour now, family friends of ours. But Russell, who's been out at Pinehurst for 17 years now, has been helping me the past handful of rounds out there, and I'll see him this afternoon. And we'll get to work again and kind of spend times. He knows the greens better than anyone, I think. And so just the nuances in that and kind of where you want to be and where you want to leave it kind of going forward. Yeah.
How will you approach this next week before the U.S. Open with Michael?
It's very interesting. I feel like the biggest part of my work has been this week, is really helping him with that kind of deeper dive into the inner game and his beliefs. And of course, I'll go out and watch, and I'll be thrilled to be inside the ropes with that, and to watch him play, and to just make sure that we're really nailed down with how he's going to respond to things, and deciding what those responses are going to be beforehand. And I just really believe that he is in a position to play the best game of his life. And we were talking yesterday, and I said, I lost my first major championship at 18 because I didn't believe that I could win when I was in a position to win. And it was actually a match play championship, and I listened to my opponent tell me what the score was. And here I was, and I thought, if I had just opened up my mind to the greater possibility, because your mind can't achieve what it can't conceive. We've heard of that. And so for him, I just wanted to open up his mind to the possibility of what he can do. And I always say there's two distinguishing features of a champion. One is superior passion, and the other is superior focus. So anytime you can open up your mind to a new possibility and take dead aim on a target at the same time. And so we've been working on, let's open up your mind to where you can go. Now let's take dead aim on the target. What are the processes and the practices that you need to engage in to have that come to pass? So we talk about quiet mind. We talk about how he's, going to respond, what his mental trigger is going to be. And I think the biggest thing for him is to really commit to one swing thought, because he has a tendency to go back and forth in his mind.
Monkey mind. Yeah.
Monkey mind. And we got to slay that. So it's interesting, because when you have a dream, it's been beautiful to see, because it's like, when you really want to, when you have that want to, and you have the dream, and you want to accomplish something, it's like, as you're moving towards it, it's moving towards you, right? So in the impending deadline, it's like, okay, we got to go to a higher realm here. We got to do things that maybe we haven't done before. And I see him doing that work.
You got to be ready for the moment.
Yeah, and it's all in the preparation. And so there are things that perhaps in the past he actually would have been preparing maybe right before a tournament, or maybe in the tournament.
Crammer, just like studying in college kind of thing.
And I was like, man, we ain't doing no cramming here. Right. Like it's all in the preparation. And part of it, even in the putting, when one might be tinkering with, well, should I do this or should I? I said, screw that stuff. Sometimes you just got to say it straight. Let's work on the preparation. Let's work on breaks. Let's work on the feels of the distances. Like, get to know the putting green. Let it get to know, and stay there until the knowing is in your body. And so we've done, a lot of that.
Do you work with David Orr? We're talking putting. Do you work with David Orr?
I have, on and off a lot in the past. He's a very busy man.
If you don't know, David is a putting instructor at Pine Needles, based
and
there.
I'm not his putting instructor, but it's like I started putting when I was 5. When my father would go play for 4 hours, I'd go putt for 4 hours straight. And that's before there was any mechanics in putting. And so my approach is very relational to putting, and a feel. And I just get out there and I'd stay there until I figured it out. And so I say, stay there until you get to know the green, and the green gets to know you, and then you don't have to think about anything, because it's in you,
It's interesting what you were just talking about, being in the moment and being prepared for that moment to happen to you or come to you, and you meet it. It reminds me what Scotty Scheffler talked about the night before the final round of the Masters, when he won, when he woke up and was freaking out, like, I'm not ready for this, and cried. It was just like, very emotional. I mean,
it's crazy to think about, because he was in the lead of the Masters, like playing great golf. It's a weird game how that can kind of all come up on you.
Yeah.
I like and I don't know who it was, but an LPGA player said, you got to prepare as if it's the most important thing in the world, and then you got to play like it means nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Quite
so,
the dichotomy,
and
yeah.
I was sharing, it's like that whole Scotty Scheffler thing is, how does he keep winning? Well, you could say, well, it's his great swing or it's his winning mindset. It's like, but he plays free. And playing free means my worth and my identity is not attached to my performance. Mm-hmm. Like that's where all the negative forces come in, right? And so he has found his freedom, quite openly in his relationship with Jesus Christ. So he has a whole other value meaning. So he's a person. And I used to actually think that excellence was the soil of greatness. And I now think it's wholeness. Because he knows he's loved. The upbringing that Scotty Scheffler had and his faith. And so there's a separation between who he is, his identity and his worth, and his performance. So it frees him to play. And that's some of the stuff that, we've been working on. And I think it's also a dimension that needs to be brought into the conversation of performance, because I really stress, I say there's four champion zones: the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And so to get into that place of identity, purpose, who are you, and play from that place, that's the most powerful place to play from. And then the results are the results of expressing who you are on the golf course.
It's interesting as you approach playing in the U.S. Open and the 9-year journey you had to get there. I would imagine, and talk about your approach and how you were helping Michael through this. I would imagine, you're elated that you've made the national championship. You're going to, this is the pinnacle of your career, but there is going to be an after the U.S. Open, whether you win it or not. How do you build that as like, okay, I've reached this height. I need to carry it even further as I pursue my career and try to get your PGA Tour card and play consistently on tour. How do you bridge the gap after the U.S. Open, regardless of what happens, whether you make the cut or not, that you need to move forward and keep pursuing and elevating even higher?
It's a great question. I've kind of just been thinking, like, leading up to this week, and then everything
We
will
haven't
fall
gotten
off.
that far, brother.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'll definitely be different moving forward after the Open, hopefully for good, but I honestly don't know.
I guess I'm trying to ask is like, how do you approach it? Just like, God, just whatever happens, let it be something I can use in the future.
I think that it's a misnomer to think that those two things are mutually exclusive. It's not an either or. We've already gotten the victory.
Yeah.
Like you could stop right here and that the goal's already been accomplished, and it's going to be a fabulous experience one way or another. And
you get a check no matter what, because Michael Wong with USGA said you will get paid because you're one of 156 in the world that have made this championship.
Oh, no, I texted him last night. I said, first place, $3.6 million. Think of all the coaching sessions that
That's a heck of a commission there, Veronica.
No, but it's like, look, I want your mind to go to the highest and the best.
For sure.
And what's beautiful about the faith-based piece is we're in control of the outcomes. Mm-hmm. But we're going to go in, and I always say there's 3 steps to, say, winning. The first is desire. Okay, you got to have a desire to win.
Right.
And I, working with a lot of competitive junior golfers, they don't even have a winning mindset. I got to instill that in him. Then the second is pursuit, right? I could desire to something, but then I got to step out and take some action and pursue it. But that's still not the final piece. The final piece is possession. You look at Tiger Woods, he could be dragging his leg down the fairway, but if I can just get a birdie, I think I can win. So it's like the possession of it. And so that's the piece of allowing your mind to go there, and at the same time knowing that whatever the result is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so those two things can be held in the same space.
As we record this, we don't know the tee times for the first round of the U.S. Open. I was listening to PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM, and Taylor Zar's his show. What's the name of the show? I forget the name of the show. It's at 7 a.m. every day. But he talked about and had somebody on the show talking about who should be the first to tee it up at the U.S. Open. And he mentioned Chesson Hadley from Raleigh and Brendan Todd from Raleigh and Craig Jenkins from Raleigh. And I was like, man, what about the kid from Southern Pines whose hometown, he's from the Sandhills. He's not from Raleigh.
Yeah.
And so, that it would. How cool would that be? I mean, we're going to know by the time this podcast posts. But how much would you like to be? I remember Don Andrews was the first to tee it up at the U.S. Women's Senior Open at Pine Needles a few years ago. So I know that was a big honor for her. How much would it be for you to be the first one to tee it up at the 2024 U.S. Open as a native of Southern Pines?
I mean, it'd be everything. I've kind of heard that from different sources, like, hey, you could be the first tee shot. I'm like, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But whenever I tee it up, I'll be ready to go. But yeah, I mean, the first tee shot would be an absolute honor, and I guess we'll know more in the next handful of days.
Do you want to play that early?
Yeah, I'll get up for that tee time. I'll make sure to be there.
You will be on global TV for the first tee shot for sure.
Yeah.
I've played in much smaller competitive CGA events, and that first shot on the first tee is always the hardest and minuscule compared to what you're going to face on that day. You've got a couple books here that you've written in the past, God Make Me a Champion, and also The Champion's Way. You want to talk about how you can obtain these and what these are all about?
The Champion's Way is my system. It's the holistic system to peak performance that I talked about, and I take all my players through it. And so this expands somebody's awareness of how peak performance happens. And God Make Me a Champion, An Athlete's Journey of Faith into the Power of Surrender, is my journey and also training of how to add the faith piece. A lot of people have a faith in God and they love to compete, but those two areas have never intersected. And so I show them how to intersect that from a performance place.
Awesome. How can they get them?
They can go on Amazon. They're available on Amazon, and then also my website, truechampionacademy.com.
As we wrap up and you prepare to win the 2024 U.S. Open, if Mammer was still around, what would she tell you today?
Go win it. Like she told me when I was a younger kid, not in the Open. That would be literally it.
That's awesome.
The most beautiful thing is someone had posted a picture in the fan club of his grandmother standing next to him. I think they were like 12 years old or something with the U.S. Open trophy. And the comment was that she wanted this picture because she knew she wouldn't be around when Michael won the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And so it goes, I said, this is in your genes. This is
She'll
in your
be there.
grandmother's
She'll be there
dream
somehow.
to come true. And so we're believing that could happen.
I did see a picture of you and Michael Campbell after he won in 2005. I heard that was quite the party over there, by the way, at Pine Needles.
It was. I think at that point I was 13 years old, so I didn't experience all the riffraff that came with that. But actually, my instructor, swing instructor, Nick Bradley, got me hooked up with him,
Nick,
and he's going to be in town staying at Pine Needles again.
Awesome.
So I'll hope to have a nice conversation with the former U.S. Open champ.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I tell you what, Nick is a good friend of the CVB here. He's done several golf tips for us, and he's a great lad. I think he's up in New York City now. And but anyway, we certainly wish you the best of luck. We'd love to see another party at Pine Needles like Michael Campbell. Just blow that one away on Sunday night, on Father's Day. I'm sure your father, Pat, would be very proud of your Uncle Kelly as well, and your entire family. We certainly wish you the best of luck, and certainly Veronica, coaching him along, getting him to this point. Congratulations. It's a special time. Just enjoy the moment.
I will.
Cool. Well, if you want to learn more about tourism, go to homeofgolf.com. If you want to watch our videos, go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. And if you love this podcast, man, what a great time with Veronica and Michael today. Tell your friends about Paradise in the Pines and download it and listen every other week. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Good to go.
That was a great interview. Thank you.